Cloud Migration Factors to Consider Part 2 Security, Authentication and Access Control. Obviously, knowing that the authentication, authorization and access control mechanisms of your cloud service provider is essential. How often does it search and remove for obsolete accounts? How many privileged accounts can access your system and data? What type of authentication is needed for these users? Does your company share common spice with other customers, suppliers? How do you ensure that that is not transferred to an unauthorized unit and consequently stolen? It is very important to at least try to know if these cloud computing service providers limit employees' access and control their authorizations so that the execution of tasks is reduced to what is strictly necessary. Who and how many people on the service provider team can see your data? Do they subcontract companies to perform these tasks? Where is your data physically stored? What happens when we no longer need certain information? What happens to the backups? What happens to this information if I have to make service regression and keep my information back in-house again? Data protection is another major concern. Data encryption is used and applied, but are these private keys shared? None of the providers of these services gave me detailed answers to these questions, especially the questions related to the theft of information, and still have serious doubt if we ever get them clearly. Well, but at least we are trying to know what is known and unknown. As a business owner, you must decide whether the security levels offered by a cloud computing company outweigh the potential security disadvantages of cloud computing, as well as the costs inherent in both forms of computing. Well, each provider of cloud service is a huge user of virtualization services, and each layer of virtualization represents an important platform in the IT infrastructure with built-in vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Virtual servers are subject to the same attacks that affect physical servers. When I talk to cloud solution providers and implementers about these virtual risks, many are eye-popping and most say the risks are exaggerated. Well, I usually tell them to check the list of the security patches from their service vendors. Well, they are pretty long. At first glance, a cloud computing application may seem a lot cheaper than a particular software solution installed and run internally, but you need to make sure you are comparing the same thing, oranges with oranges. Yes, applications in cloud, as known as software as a service, do not require large capital investments for licensing or supporting infrastructure. But does the cloud application have the same resources you need? Are the resources you have important? Will we have to customize the cloud-based software to meet the needs? These adaptations to the software can greatly increase the costs. If you use custom-built in-house software, you may not be able to move it to the cloud without rewriting it. With a move to the cloud, you deliver your information to a conventional IT team that does not have the same knowledge of your business that an internal IT has and can better understand, well, much better, your business requirements. To be sure that we are doing the right thing, we have to carefully observe all the details of pricing plans. Well, just as we do in our plans for mobile and TV, taking into account the possible future expansion. For example, the president of a non-profit organization that switched to a based cloud solution application found that when the number of members hired was exceeded, the cost for the upgrade was more than the double. If you use Linux and or free software packages, there is no cost, but if you use proprietary software and if you do not need the most updated versions every year, the software desktop can be cheaper in the long run. For example, if you purchase the perpetual version of Microsoft Office and use it for several years, you pay a one-time fee and own the software forever, against having to pay an annual fee for using the cloud-based version of Office 365. There are many free software solutions for Office tools like LibreOffice, OpenOffice, or even the Office solution I use integrated with my Nextcloud server, the only Office that is installed in my Docker machine, completely integrated with my daily work. But if you feel uncomfortable with these solutions, you can buy a perpetual license of Microsoft Office for desktop or decide to use an Office 365 type of solution that has a cost that will exceed the perpetual license solution in about 2 years. Well, do you need to update Microsoft Office every month? Every 2 years? Are these changes and updates so important to your workflow? I don't believe it. I had these doubts some years ago, but now I've managed to build this solution with Nextcloud and only Office, and I use it every day without any problems, really no problems at all. The inflexibility of some cloud-based applications can be another serious drawback. Be careful when choosing a service provider that will not become a customer forever because their application and or data formats do not allow the transfer, conversion, export of information to other formats. Some vendors try deliberately to block customers using proprietary software and hardware, so that it is most impossible or extremely expensive to switch to another vendor. Make sure that the contract you established stipulates that you retain ownership of your data and that the supplier offers are in line with the current standards, ensuring data confidentiality. To wrap this up, cloud computing is an opportunity for companies to reduce the hassle of managing systems and IT costs, as long as they can live with the disadvantages, and sometimes these cost reductions can reveal a bigger cost in the long run. The security issues related to having personal and business data controlled by third parties seem to me to be a main target of concern for everyone. Have you thought about how many people you don't know and who have physical access to your data? Have you ever thought that that information could be suddenly unavailable? Have you ever thought that this same information can be tampered with, corrupted, or even encrypted? If you haven't thought about it yet, start by analyzing whether the information you want to keep in the cloud is stored securely and that no one other than the authorized people has access to it, and whether it is in fact important to you and your organization. Have you ever imagined that someone outside your organization can have access to the data of your contacts, customers, suppliers, and if someone from a competition company gets all your data? If you like the content, please feel free to press the like button and subscribe. This will encourage the creation of new content. See you next time.